Right now, many experts say we're living through a loneliness crisis. The U.S. Surgeon General reported that millions of adults feel disconnected from others, cut off, unseen, alone. But your story doesn't really fit that narrative, because in your case, the distance wasn't forced on you. You chose it. At some point, you stopped answering certain calls. You saw certain names on your screen and thought, I don't have the energy for this anymore. And something surprising happened. Instead of feeling emptier, you felt lighter. Instead of loneliness, there was silence. And that silence felt peaceful, which raises an interesting question. How does someone become the person who can quietly step away from people and not feel guilty about it? Because there was probably a time when you were the opposite. You used to be the reliable one, the person everyone depended on when life got messy, the friend who listened for hours, the one who stayed calm during family conflicts, the one who tried to fix things. When people were overwhelmed, they came to you, and you rarely said no. You absorbed people's frustrations, their worries, their drama, over and over again. You gave advice that often went ignored. You watched the same patterns repeat until eventually something inside you shifted. Maybe it happened slowly, or maybe it happened all at once, but one day you realized something simple. You didn't have to be available to everyone. And when you stopped, the noise in your life got quieter. That moment wasn't you becoming distant. It was your nervous system doing what it naturally does, protecting you. Our brains are designed to detect when something is draining or unsafe. When the same stress repeats enough times, the body adapts. Psychologist Stephen Porges describes this through what's known as Polyvagal Theory. According to this idea, your nervous system constantly shifts between different states. One state encourages connection and social interaction. Another activates when your body believes it needs to conserve energy and protect itself. So after enough emotional exhaustion, your brain may begin to withdraw. You stop engaging the same way. You step back. You become more selective about where your energy goes. Not because you've stopped caring, but because your body has learned that unlimited availability comes with a cost. And often that lesson starts much earlier in life than we realize. Some people grow up learning to read emotional signals before they even understand them. They watch the tone of someone's voice, the expression on someone's face. They notice subtle shifts in mood that others miss. In unpredictable environments, this ability becomes a survival skill. Psychologist Murray Bowen describes something similar with the concept of emotional cutoff. When closeness becomes emotionally overwhelming, distance can feel like the safest option. So as a child, you may have learned to step back in order to stay balanced. And that instinct sometimes follows people into adulthood. When relationships begin to feel chaotic, your mind remembers what once kept you safe: space. But here's where things get important. There's a difference between isolating yourself and protecting your boundaries. True isolation shuts the world out completely. Boundaries simply filter who gets access. Studies from the Centers for Disease Control have shown that extreme, long-term social isolation can affect physical health, increasing risks for conditions like heart disease and stroke. Human connection does matter, but what those statistics don't always explain is that the quality of relationships matters just as much as the quantity. Being surrounded by people who drain your energy can be just as harmful as being alone. So the key question isn't whether distance is good or bad. The real question is why that distance exists. If stepping away from someone brings relief, that's meaningful. If your mind finally feels calm, that's important information. Sometimes what people call cutting others off is simply someone recognizing unhealthy patterns. And people who've experienced emotional stress early in life often become extremely good at recognizing those patterns. Research published in Nature Neuroscience found that individuals exposed to early emotional challenges often show stronger activity in brain regions responsible for detecting threats. In simple terms, their brains become highly skilled at reading people. They notice inconsistencies, they notice emotional shifts, they notice behaviors others overlook. What some people call being overly sensitive may actually be advanced social awareness. Over time, that awareness turns into intuition. You start recognizing cycles before they fully unfold. The friend who disappears until they need help. The person who gives affection one moment and distance the next. The conversations that always leave you emotionally exhausted. When you've seen those patterns enough times, stepping away doesn't feel dramatic. It just feels logical, which is why many people in this position don't feel lonely at all. They feel selective. Society sometimes interprets this incorrectly. Words like distant, antisocial, or withdrawn get used quickly. But those labels assume that everyone needs constant interaction to feel fulfilled. In reality, there's another experience entirely. It's called solitude. Loneliness is when you crave connection and can't find it. Solitude is when you intentionally create space and discover peace inside it. There's a huge difference between sitting alone wishing someone cared and sitting alone because, for the first time, your mind feels quiet. For many people, that quiet becomes a form of healing. Your phone isn't constantly buzzing. Your energy isn't being pulled in 10 different directions. You can finally think clearly. Some people will misunderstand that choice. They may assume you're avoiding the world, but often the opposite is true. You're not running away from life. You're moving toward a version of life that feels healthier, a life with fewer chaotic relationships, a life with more clarity and emotional balance. And if you ever wonder whether this makes you cold or uncaring, remember something important. Choosing peace doesn't mean you've stopped loving people. It simply means you've learned that your energy deserves protection too. One of the longest studies ever conducted on happiness, Harvard's famous 75-year research project, reached a powerful conclusion. A fulfilling life isn't built on the number of relationships you have. It's built on the quality of the ones you keep. So if your circle is smaller than it used to be, that doesn't mean you've failed socially. It might just mean you've become clearer about what kind of connections actually matter. And sometimes that clarity is exactly what leads people out of chaos and into peace.